Dr. Malone, thanks for being with us again today. We've got, it's Thursday, April the 2nd, 2020. And again, we're downtown Pensacola, which is pretty much a ghost town still. And it is, I can't remember what day that is. We're into our third week of working remotely. So that's the way I'm sort of gauging this. Next week is our fourth week of working remotely. Thankfully, we hadn't missed a beat when it comes to working for our clients remotely, but and signing up new clients. But there has definitely been obviously a decrease in the amount of traffic on the roads, which means there's a decrease naturally in the amount of car wrecks. So those intakes have actually gone down a fair amount over the last couple of weeks, which means people are doing what they're supposed to do. Thankfully, they're staying at home, which I'm glad. But I wanted you to bring our local community up to speed on the medical news on the virus today. Then I had some questions later, and I think we were going to do some things that we didn't get finished with yesterday. So go ahead.
Okay, so as you've been, I guess, introing us here, I'm trying to get the county numbers, which haven't updated for the evening update yet. But for the state, we're just over 9,000 now, positive cases, 9,008, and that's as of within the last hour of publication. No movement actually overnight from the 101 in the county that we had last night. So this morning the number was the same and no updates at this point. So if that happens while we're on, I'll obviously interject. As far as let's see here, as far as the scoring for the social distancing that we've been looking at, the country's at a C, the state of Florida's at a B minus, and then the Escambia County is at C still, and that's more or less real time. I think it might be a day delayed. So again, I'd be interested to see how this changes with the new orders from the governor in place effective, I guess, starting tonight. In regard to medical news, the stuff I wanted to bring up was, and this is, I guess, medically related, but I saw in the news today that the Escambia County Medical Society actually put out a letter in support of keeping the beaches closed. I guess 85% of their membership that had a say voted to advise the council, the commissioners to keep the beaches closed. So that was something, I guess, with the physicians are saying that, then that's kind of their stance on keeping a hold on the social distancing. And then on to the medicine stuff, things that I saw in the news, things that I saw that people should understand or maybe have a chance to read through, something that's reliable. And we'll provide links to all these things. We talked about age as far as a risk for people to be impacted more by this illness. Another one that is showing itself is obesity. And I say that because we're starting to, the numbers we had a month ago were all the European numbers or the Chinese numbers. So now we're getting our own numbers, and Americans have high BMIs. And
especially compared to Chinese folks,
yes,
right?
Yes. And so the numbers are saying, the CDC is saying if you're a BMI over 40, that you have more risk. But then there's some other obesity study groups that saying over 25, if your BMI is over 25, wow, that you have an increased risk of bad illness. So you don't catch it because you're obese, but you don't tolerate it because you're obese. And that's because it goes along with heart and lung conditions, but also just the mass of the human body at that proportion is difficult to render care to the patient in the ICU setting, to transport the patient, to get them in and out of like CT scanners. And that's a real limitation as far as being able to know what someone is treating. And one thing I'll add when we mention this is ARDS, the respiratory distress syndrome that warrants intubation. One of the treatment modalities for that is to what they call prone positioning of the patient. So you go to an ICU and you see someone intubated, you see them laying on their back, staring at the ceiling with the tube sticking out their mouth, right? Flip the patient over when they have ARDS on their belly.
Why is that?
And so that is to reposition the dependent parts of the lung. So if you're laying on your back the whole time, there's a half of your lung, not the bottom, but I guess the back portion that's next to your spine and the back of your ribs that is dependent, and there's collapse that occurs there, among other things. So the idea is some prone positioning where the body is rotated over and over on a scheduled basis by the nurses. So they do prone positioning. Well, that's very difficult to do by nursing staff and respiratory therapy staff when you get certain proportions of body size. So that's a limitation. So as far as, why these people do poorly in the long run, that's obviously going to continue to be studied. But the early numbers are showing that BMIs of at least over 25 and certainly over 40 are not faring well at all. Again, so
what does that mean? What is a 25 BMI? What does that look like in pounds? And
sure, yeah.
Yep.
So here's, I pulled this up because I anticipated this question. A 5'9" male who weighs over 170 pounds is considered a BMI of 25.
Wow. Okay.
So that's, think of people that are 5'9" and say, he's probably 170, but in the eyes of the CDC, he's obese. But the CDC says over 40 is where they're seeing their numbers right now. So the same height of a gentleman would be 271 pounds to have a BMI over 40. Okay.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah. So think of those proportions. So if you're talking to someone who is average height and they're saying, oh yeah, I'm 250 pounds, they're the people that the CDC is talking about. So keep that in mind. And then obviously women are generally shorter, but the same weight applies for the BMI. Okay. So if a woman was 5'6", she wouldn't have to weigh 270 pounds. She'd have to weigh like 240 and her BMI would be 40.
Wow.
Okay. And this is a link that we'll share on here. It's the CDC link. It's got a BMI calculator on there for you.
So I had a couple of questions on that. So everybody's talking, what I'm hearing today is masks if you don't have the virus. The fact that the virus can travel not only with when somebody sneezes and coughs, but it also can be exhaled, I guess. Mm-hmm. And the what do they call the little particles? The little, what do they call the fancy word for those particles? The little particles of saliva. It's called something fancy. What's it called?
I don't know.
They've been using a term for it, and I can't remember what it's. Anyway, the little particles of saliva that have the virus on it can like be in the air, and then you could breathe the air in, and then now you have the virus. So here's the question. They said the most likely place for it to attach is in your sinuses, like right behind the bridge of your nose, like back in there. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then I guess what does it do? It goes down your trachea.
It infects the cells there or attacks the cells there and then replicates.
Okay. So you start having symptoms in your nose, mm-hmm. and then your throat, mm-hmm. and then your lungs.
Yeah.
So here's my question. You ready?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you get to the hospital and they test you and you find you have the virus while it's still in your nose area, your sinuses, before it gets to your throat, or even when it gets to your throat, but before it gets to your lungs, do you have a better chance of beating it if you catch it at that point versus when it's down to your lungs and you're coughing and stuff? You have pneumonia.
Absent any effective treatment at this point, no. So those people are being triaged, meaning do they need to stay in the hospital and be admitted because maybe this part that's just in their nose is rendering something else in their body imbalanced, but or if they increased risk of having pneumonia. But if you're the young, otherwise healthy person that say go home, you need to isolate, you need to quarantine, and then you need to obviously have a pretty low threshold for reporting to the ER if things change drastically. So you've been identified, but you're not being treated.
All right. What are is there data on this? Is there data on who all gets pneumonia from this versus just has sinus issues? Or is that just the data that says 80% of the people don't get serious stuff? Is that pretty much what the...
Yeah, it's that 80-20, and again, those numbers were reliant upon the stuff before it hit the states. So I think we're going to see new numbers for the states. I don't expect them to be vastly different, but maybe we're 70-30, or maybe we're 90-10. I don't know.
So here's the $10,000 question or a $100,000 question, whatever you want to call it. But here's the question. If you're an event from this and we don't have a treatment for it, how does the event help, number one, and how do you get it reversed without a treatment? And why isn't every case terminal that ends up on event? It seems like to me, by the time you get on an event, you've got pneumonia so bad that I guess they call it tire out, and they put you on an event because your breasts are so shallow, the body can't keep up with how much you have to breathe, right? So what makes it better if there's no treatment for it? Why does the virus get better?
So there's no medical treatment for it, but our immune systems treat it. We develop an antibody to it. So over that 2-week interval that you've been hearing, where that's what an uncomplicated case lasts, by the end of that 2 weeks, you have an antibody that is attacking that virus and killing it off for you. But the reason why we're so susceptible to it as a population is nobody's got the antibody right now. So you do treat yourself to kill the virus.
Yeah, but 80% of the public that had it and killed it and beat it has the antibody that's already had it and beat it. So why can't we just identify what that antibody is? Of course, I'm speaking like I know what I'm talking about, but why can't we figure out what that antibody is and then just give everybody that antibody? Isn't that what a vaccination is anyway?
No. So a vaccination is you expose an individual to the antigen. So it'd be inactive virus or some a part of the coding of the virus. There's different modalities of doing that. And then that stimulates your body to generate the antibody. That's how the flu vaccine works. As far as giving people antibody, that's the convalescent plasma we mentioned last night. It's basically a transfusion of plasma from an individual who has the antibody because they've been infected and they've recovered. That's something that's being done, and it's being done on compassionate grounds right now. And they're trying to figure out the best way to mobilize this to treat the most, I guess, the hot spots, really. So like the New York Cities and all that. And then you need to identify who to treat. So if I'm one of the mild cases, they're not going to treat me with it. But if someone's admitted and they're of that 20% that's in the ICU that's intubated, there's a chance they're going to get that if there's no other contraindications to them getting a transfusion from someone of plasma, because it's not without risk.
All right. And so what kills people? What kills people is pneumonia, right?
Yeah. So
pneumonia, and then some kind of other organ failure. If they're treating the pneumonia, and then you have a weak link somewhere else, heart disease, kidney disease, liver disease, diabetes. If those things start causing you problems while they're treating your pneumonia, then that can kill you.
Yeah. So when someone's intubated in the ICU because of respiratory failure, the idea is to try to monitor and maintain the rest of the organs. So make sure that they don't get dehydrated, go into kidney failure, make sure that they're getting enough oxygen and they don't have an anoxic brain injury. And then avoiding the other complications from a hospital, clots in the legs, a bacterial pneumonia that can complicate the viral pneumonia. So then you have what they call basically a super infection, an infection on top of another one. And so there are hospital-acquired conditions that can complicate these people's stay. That the sicker they are when they hit the door, chance of them having urinary tract infection, clots, other hospital-acquired illness certainly goes up quite a bit. So it's trying to fend off all those things, and that's what we've been doing for years with people that come in sick from any other condition. They come in for trauma, they do that. So
right. Okay, sorry, I took a little side trip there.
That's all right.
Back to your agenda.
Yeah. So real quick follow-up. Last week we mentioned the ibuprofen, the initial concerns that it may worsen people's symptoms or their onset of illness if they got infected by COVID. So it doesn't cause the infection, but if they get infected, it made it worse. There's now been multiple studies and reviews done on this, and the consensus from King's College in England is that there is no direct association that shows that the ibuprofen, the Advil, worsens these people's condition. They did find in the study, because they've studied some other drugs, is that the implementation of corticosteroids, so like solumedrol or hydrocortisone, to these acutely ill people is actually helping them out. So they
Right.
identified something that they need further research to say, how can we, get this person through this better? And that's not because it treats the virus, but it treats everything else we just talked about. Pardon me, we just talked about with the inflammation of the lungs, the function of the other organs, to try and decrease that gross inflammation that the whole body is experiencing. So the idea is, will steroids help get them through that? Okay.
All right. Well, that's
And then
sort of good news, I guess.
yeah, no, yeah, definitely. So they're saying, obviously,
So let's put that in terms of people that need the information. If somebody has the virus and they have fever, you're saying the literature says they can use Advil to control their fever without worrying about it making the virus worse. Is that what you're basically saying here?
correct. So it says no published evidence for or against the use of ibuprofen or nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories in COVID-infected patients.
And what journal is that? What journal is that in?
So, and I gave a link to this that we'll share tonight.
Good.
It's a publication from King's College in London, England, and
Okay.
they did a review of 13 studies. So it's authoritative enough that, and they obviously say that this is not like the end point. Like, they want to continue to follow these other drugs that could leave people at risk. So it's a one good move. So the take home point is this: if you're used to treating your fever with Advil, you're no worse off than treating with Tylenol, either one. So whatever one is indicated for you.
Okay.
And I'll finish by saying Tylenol doesn't go with people with liver disease, and ibuprofen doesn't go with people with kidney disease. So you switch the roles.
All right.
And then lastly, before I guess a little demonstration on gloves, is there was something in the news, and I just thought we'd share this just to straighten it out. There are anecdotal reports of these patients that are coming in, again, because we are in the United States, are collecting our information from our providers, where what they call anosmia, which is the lack of the sense of smell, and dysgeusia, which is the lack of sense of taste or altered taste, are common among these people that are coming in. They can't smell or taste something, and
Right.
that's a complaint of, along with, I don't feel well. And so the American Academy of ENT is collecting data on that. They have a call out for submittals from any physicians that have treated patients. They're getting information to try and best identify the pathology behind this, the physiology behind this, and if this is something that they can leverage into perhaps identifying these patients earlier, or even attacking the nature of the disease. So that is something that is real on an anecdotal basis, enough that it's causing an entire college of physicians in the United States to really go after it. So I'll be interested to see what comes of that.
We had a question on Facebook, if you can answer it real quick. I actually was thinking of this too. This is sort of where I was going with the whole, it starts in the sinuses, goes to your lungs. The question is there anything you can do to help reduce potential virus traveling from the sinuses to the lungs, i.e. keeping sinuses and throat clean, like gargling with warm salt water, warm water and lemon, Listerine, neti pot? Would any of that help?
So go ahead.
No, I think this is going to dovetail into what we were talking about last night, where they're trying all these substances against the virus to see if anything kills the virus. And so far, they've tried everything they can, and they can't kill the virus with anything, right? Is that pretty accurate or not?
Well, there's been trials out there to try and kill it. The folks last night tagging the actual viral particles and being able to envision it. They are just starting those studies now. They had to figure out a way to tag the virus so they could visualize it first, and they had that breakthrough earlier this week. So now they've gotten that, now they're going to be trying to, I guess, throw stuff at it and see what happens. To answer that question, so there's no suggesting of ingesting any kind of bleach or
chemical,
anything like that. Nothing like that. You're not
right.
It's definitely you're going to do more harm than good.
Right.
As far as
that one, they're questioning Listerine, neti pot, salt water, things that you can ingest.
So to maintain like the health of the mucosa, so that you're not having like a dry, like some of these decongestants will dry people out and they get like cracked lining of their nostrils, things like that. So to keep it healthy, that's really the use of all those neti pots and the gargles and the swishes. You know, if you have a sore throat and it's just red and beefy and all that stuff, so to try and calm down that inflammation does you better, so that the virus can't enter into the bloodstream as easily, can't access those cells as easily. So that's the only proof that using Listerine to say, oh, I'm going to kill this virus right now with this, probably not going to kill it. But if you want to try to keep your good dentition and healthy bacteria in your entire cavity, keep all the cells and the salivary production intact, then that's certainly something that is recommended. There were news reports initially of people putting Neosporin in their nose, and that's not advised and is not going to help.
Yeah, well, good. All right. And what was the other thing on your list?
So you asked yesterday, I'll put my gloves on, and they're just repurposed ones, so I didn't take these from a hospital. I didn't steal these from someone who actually needs them for PPE purposes, but they're clean. So, and we'll share a schematic that we got from the CDC on this. So you had asked about how would you take these gloves off and not contaminate yourself if they were covered in something that's invisible that you can't see, right? So the idea is, I'm going to push this down a little bit more. So the idea is, hold on, there you go. With this hand here, you grab the outside of this one, okay? It's dirty on dirty.
Right.
This glove is now inside out. And so it's in this hand. Hold on. There you go. So it's in this hand. The dirty glove is in this hand. Okay.
And then the fist of the dirty glove.
Yep. And then I take this finger.
The dirty glove's inside the fist of the dirty glove. And now you're going to glove that hand with your clean finger. That's a clean finger sticking in there. Try not to touch the edge outside of that glove, right?
Not touching grab the inside of the glove.
Right. Okay.
Now I'm holding the inside of the glove with this finger. Throw it in the garbage. Get my hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Get my hand sanitizer. Sanitize my hands. And if you touched any part of that outside of the glove, you're going to want to wash extra special hard.
Maybe wash with soap and then hand sanitizer, right?
Yeah. And so these, when you're holding onto the inside of this, gets dropped right into a garbage can. It doesn't get set on the counter. It doesn't get set somewhere else for later. Right into the garbage can where no one else is going to touch it. And then I just wanted to add the gloves that we talked about last night. So reiterate, no touching the outside of the glove. To take the glove on, or to take the mask on and off, it's by grabbing the ear loop around the outside and pulling this way, holding on to only the ear loop and dropping that into the garbage can the same way.
Got you. So. Now, are you going out at all, out of your house at all?
Not really. We went for a run this morning, and besides the run, I haven't been out at all.
How are you handling runs? Like if you're running and let's say somebody's running towards you, and if you don't alter your course, they're going to be within 2 feet of you. What do? Do you make a big loop around them? What do you do?
I think that running the last 2 or 3 weeks, people have given everybody a wider berth than normal. I run with a group of folks at 5:30 on Tuesday and Thursday morning, and even in our group, there were like 4 or 5 people. We're like spaced out to the point where the people in the front aren't necessarily hearing the same conversation as people in the back. Whereas a month ago, we all be in part of the same discussion. So we're that spread out. So that is going on. But yeah, when we cross paths, which happened this morning, there was a group of 3 running toward us. They all jumped in the road. We stayed on the sidewalk.
Okay. Let's say you go to the grocery store. Who goes to the grocery store for you? Is it Mindy? Is it you? Is it a combination? Who's going to the store?
She's taken on that task as of late.
All right. If you were going to the grocery store, okay, and it was a normal time of day, it wasn't like in the crack of dawn, it wasn't late at night, you were just going like right in the middle of the day and there's tons of people there, would you wear a mask?
No.
Why not? I mean, all these people are breathing in there. They're breathing, they're coughing, there's air that's got those particles in it, you're walking through it. I mean, I'm visualizing this virus just floating around and people just you're just walking around floating it into your sinuses. I mean, why would you not wear a mask? I don't.
Well, the simple answer is I don't have one, but if I had one, would I put it on? With the enactment of, hey, we should be staying home anyhow. I don't care who I get seen by. If I had one, I'd probably put it on in that setting. Sure.
Okay. Oh, so you would wear one.
Yeah, and I would
What about
probably
like a scarf? Like if you had like I don't know, you have things that you can put over your mouth. Would you
like
wear
those,
one of those and just
like a buff, like a
yeah,
sun buff or whatever. Yeah,
right,
I think so long as it's clean. But again, you have to be careful. Like when you take it off, like you don't want the outer part to roll up onto your face when you're taking it off. Like it needs to be like stretched out, taken off your head, and put right in the wash.
Okay.
So if I wore it in the morning, I wouldn't put it back on later in the day if I went out somewhere, because that kind of defeats the purpose of having it on.
And
I have no scientific way to prove that.
And then what are you doing about your like produce and your vegetables from the store? Are you putting them through hot water? Are you washing them with soap? What are you doing?
They're getting more of a wash than they usually would.
All right. What does that mean to you?
So like a potato goes under hot water, it gets a scrub with a scrub brush and gets towel dried and sits there for a little bit before we bake it.
Okay.
Or whatever we do with it. Yeah. And then
you don't use any cleansing agent though. There's no cleansing agent on the
No.
Nope. Hot water basically you feel like does the trick.
Yeah.
Fruits and vegetables.
That's I mean, if I hear otherwise, but yeah, I'm not doing that. But the one thing I will say is actually I did go to the store almost a week ago now, and I noticed that at Publix they had a dedicated cart wiper offer person,
right?
And it like the whole area smelled like bleach, so that was reassuring. And of course, I have my own my own little portable pocket bottle of like hand sanitizer that I'm carrying around, and I'm applying that multiple times. But in the past, I'll shop and like pick up the can, look at the nutritional information, pick up whatever it is.
No,
I was like looking because I'm like, I got one shot at this, so I'm grabbing one thing. So yeah, that did happen. And then the other thing I noticed is when I went to check out, it felt like concierge service. Like I rolled my cart up and there was 3 people unloading my cart for me, effectively keeping me 6 feet from the guy in front of me or 6 feet from the person behind me.
Right.
And they unloaded it, so I didn't have to touch it again. And then it was in the bags, and I didn't have to touch it again. And I got home, and yeah, you touch it to put away. And at that point, I've washed my hands 3 times and had hand sanitizer on. So that was my experience at the store.
Well, it just seems to me that over the last week and a half, if you put aside the concern that masks are in need at the hospitals, okay, and I don't think we should do anything that takes away from that need. But let's say you have something at home that works like a mask. And I know nothing really works. The N95 does 90% or something of maybe it's 95% of the particles. And then the regular surgical masks that don't necessarily attach to your face and have the filter, they do like 30 to 40% of the particles are, and then if you just put a piece of cloth over your face, it's like 10 to 20% of the particles are kept out of your nose and mouth. Last week they were saying you don't need a mask if you're healthy. And I think a lot of that was they didn't want people taking the mask away from the first responders. And I agree, right? But at the same time, they could say, and they're doing this now, but go ahead and cover your mouth. Go ahead and cover your mouth with something, because we're thinking the particles that people are breathing out, even just breathing out, are hanging around up to 1.5 meters away from their body in the air, suspended for some period of time while you're walking around the store. So seems to me, if I go to the grocery store, I'm going to have something over my mouth. So just FYI, folks, if you see me out, I'm probably going to look like the Lone Ranger or the Bandit or somebody, whoever I am, but it's going to have something over my mouth.
Well,
the Lone Ranger just had a mask. He didn't have a thing over his face.
So here's the time to share this, Joe. This is my mom in Virginia Beach has been making her own.
That's right. Yeah,
so
kudos to your mom.
guys.
She made those. Look at those. And she's giving those out to the first responders up there in Virginia Beach. Is that right?
Yeah, they had them for friends. And I think like there's a call from some of the medical facilities up there for folks that
is that somebody wearing hers, or is that her wearing it?
That's my mom. So she's got it. It's tucked right up against her nose there, and kind of it provides enough coverage. And
she put some kind of piece of metal in there that's bent around, that allows her to bend it around.
Yeah, she downloaded the plan. There's like some sort of a plan online, and she downloaded it. It shows you what dimensions and how to do it, and what to put the little metal in. And apparently, it may cover that 10% you're talking about. It's more for the general population, but there's people out
Right.
there making them. So.
Well, that's great. We thank her for doing that. That's very thoughtful of her.
Yeah.
And I know the first responders do. I reached out to an emergency room physician that I know today, and I sent him a text, and I was like, dude, I appreciate it. Everything you're doing, you're on the front lines of this, and it's just now getting geared up, and I know you're already exhausted, and we appreciate you. So thanks to the nurses, the doctors, the first responders, the police officers, everybody that's on the front lines of this stuff at the hospitals. The hospital administrators, I'm sure, are working overtime to make sure their staff has everything they need. The custodians at the hospital, the orderlies, whoever's at the hospital these days is doing a woman's job, and we thank them for sure. All right, we'll be back tomorrow with another update. Hopefully we'll have good news next time.
Yeah, let me check those numbers real quick before we get out of here.
Numbers.
Since I said we were going to do it, it's just a quick refresh on the browser here. Like I said, we were at 101 earlier, and I anticipated there'd be a jump. I just was kind of curious what that amount was going to be. County numbers right now still have us at 101, so it's not a big change, no change in fact. So I don't know if it's been updated or not, or maybe it's just a day where we didn't record any positives, which I'll take those days.
The latter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take those days. So, all right.
Dr. Malone, we appreciate your time and energy on this, and thanks for being available for us. Zarzaurlaw.com on the web, 855-HIRE-JOE. Again, the office is open remotely. We're observing all those distance things since this is our third week, going into our fourth week of that. But we've been able to sign up new clients virtually and in person if necessary. We also are able to meet you by telephone. So you can call us at 855-HIRE-JOE, or like I said, you can email us questions at info@zarzaurlaw.com. Or if you have a question for Dr. Malone on these subjects, these medical subjects, these coronavirus subjects, you can post it to the Facebook or Instagram, wherever this is going to be. Thank y'all very much.
We got reliable links in there for everything, guys.
Yes. Yeah, we're backing all this up. No fake news here. Y'all take care. Thank you.